Cyber Threat Brief for May 15, 2026. Cisco SDWAN faces its sixth exploited zero-day of 2026, with CVE 2026-20182 granting attackers administrative access. Windows 11 BitLocker completely defeated by a zero-day exploit requiring only a USB drive and physical access. Microsoft Exchange servers under active attack via CVE 2026-42897, a spoofing flaw exploitable through malicious emails. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Cybersecurity Threat Brief May 15, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. Cisco Catalyst SDWAN Controller Authentication Bypass, CVE 2026-20182. Cisco SDWAN Controller and Manager contain a critical authentication bypass vulnerability. CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, 10.0, actively exploited in zero-day attacks. The flaw allows unauthenticated remote attackers to gain administrative privileges by exploiting a broken peering authentication mechanism. Threat actor UAT 8616 exploited this flaw in May 2026, using the access to add SSH keys, modify netconf configurations, and escalate to root privileges. This is the sixth SDWAN zero-day exploited in 2026. CVE 2026-20182 was discovered by Rapid7 during analysis of a similar authentication bypass previously exploited by the same actor. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added to KEV Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog with a May 17, 2026 remediation deadline. CIS a KEV due 2026-0517, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action. Apply Cisco security updates immediately. Review/var/log/auth. Log for accepted public key for vManage admin entries from unknown IPs. Check SDWAN controller logs for unauthorized peering events from unrecognized IP addresses or unexpected device types. Restrict SDWAN management and control plane interfaces to trusted internal networks only. Federal agencies must patch by May 17, 2026 per CISA directive. Sources: Bleeping Computer Security Week CIS, The Hacker News Talos. Windows Zero-Day BitLocker Bypass, Yellow Key. A zero-day exploit named Yellow Key completely defeats default Windows 11 BitLocker protections using a custom-crafted FSTX folder on a USB drive. The exploit requires physical access, but works reliably within seconds. An attacker copies a specially crafted FSTX directory to a USB drive, boots the target Windows 11 or Windows Server 2022/2025 system into Windows recovery environment while holding control, and receives a command prompt with full access to the encrypted drive. BitLocker recovery keys are bypassed entirely. TPM plus PIN configurations do not mitigate the issue. The flaw involves transactional NTFS, where a system volume information //FSTX directory on one volume can modify contents of another volume when replayed. Security researcher Will Dorman confirmed exploitation. The researcher, Nightmare Eclipse, released the exploit publicly after dissatisfaction with Microsoft's handling of previous vulnerability disclosures. CVE 2025-48804 EPSS, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, 0.5, 64th percentile. CVE 2026-33825 is CIS a KEV due 2026-056, EPSS 0.56, 90th percentile. Action. Microsoft has not released a patch. Organizations relying on default BitLocker configurations should implement additional physical security controls and consider TPM-only configurations insufficient for high-security environments. Monitor for unauthorized physical access to systems. Multiple researchers have confirmed the exploit works as described. Sources: The Hacker News Ars Technica. Microsoft Exchange Zero-Day, CVE 2026-42897, Microsoft Exchange Server 2016, 2019, and Subscription Edition face active exploitation via CVE 2026-42897, CVSS 8.1, a cross-site scripting spoofing vulnerability. Attackers send a specially crafted email that, when opened in Outlook Web Access under specific interaction conditions, executes arbitrary JavaScript in the browser context. Microsoft is providing temporary mitigation through the Exchange Emergency Mitigation Service, EAMS, which applies automatically via URL rewrite configuration. Patches are in development. Exchange Online is not affected. For air-gapped environments, Microsoft provides the Exchange On-Premises Mitigation Tool, EOMT. Run via Elevated Exchange Management Shell, Single Server, //EOMT, PS1CVE or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, or All Servers, Get Exchange Server Where Object $, Server Role Knee Edge, //EOMT, PS1CVE, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: Enable Exchange Emergency Mitigation Service immediately if not already running. For air-gapped environments, download and run the latest EOMT version. Monitor for suspicious login activity and review authentication logs. Microsoft will release patches for Exchange SE-RTM, 2016 CU23, and 2019 CU14/CU15. Note that Exchange 2016 and 2019 updates will only be available to customers enrolled in the Period 2 Exchange Server ESU program. Sources: Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News, MSRC. Next section, Ransomware and Extortion. Foxconn North American facilities hit by nitrogen ransomware. Foxconn confirmed a cyber attack disrupted operations at several North American facilities this week. Nitrogen Ransomware Group claimed responsibility, alleging exfiltration of 11 million files totaling 8 terabytes of data. The stolen data includes confidential instructions, internal project documentation, and technical drawings related to projects involving Intel, Apple, Google, Dell, and NVIDIA. Sample files allegedly include Foxconn financial records, engineering schematics, motherboard and PCB diagrams, server platform documentation, and manufacturing process documents. The exposed materials also reference confidential technical documentation from J.P. Morgan Chase, Google, Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, ASPEED, Renesas, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Tencent. Foxconn has not confirmed a ransom payment. The company remains listed on Nitrogen's leak site, suggesting negotiations are ongoing or the company has decided not to pay. Foxconn stated affected factories are resuming normal production. This attack is one of 600 ransomware hits on manufacturing companies in 2026, with median ransom payments at $400,000. Action: Manufacturing companies should review Nitrogen's tactics. SEO poisoning and fake software, downloads distributing malicious installers impersonating Advanced IP Scanner, AnyDesk, WinSCP, or Cisco AnyConnect. Foxconn's clients, Apple, NVIDIA, Amazon, Dell, Google, Huawei, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, Xiaomi, should assess potential exposure of shared technical documentation and project data. Sources: Dark Reading Cyberscoop. Kongtuk pivots to Microsoft Teams for social engineering. Initial access broker, Kongtuk, has shifted to Microsoft Teams for social engineering attacks, reducing time from first contact to persistent access to under 5 minutes. A threat actor tricks users into pasting a PowerShell command that deploys Modilo RAT malware. Kongtuk has been active since at least April 2026, rotating through 5 Microsoft 365 tenants to evade blocking. The attacker uses Unicode whitespace tricks to make display names appear legitimate, impersonating internal IT support staff. The PowerShell command downloads a zip archive from Dropbox containing a portable WinPython environment that launches Modilo RAT pmanager. Pi. The malware has evolved with a 5-server command and control pool with automatic failover, randomized URL paths, self-update capability, multiple independent access paths, primary RAT, reverse shell, TCP backdoor, and expanded persistence mechanisms using run keys, startup shortcuts, VB script launchers, and system-level scheduled tasks. The scheduled task persists through the implant's self-destruct routine and system reboots. Action: Restrict external Microsoft Teams federation using allow lists. Hunt for indicators of compromise in ReliaQuest's report. Review PowerShell execution logs for commands downloading zip archives from Dropbox. Check for WinPython portable environments and Python-based RATs. Scan for persistence mechanisms in run keys, startup folders, and system-level scheduled tasks. Source: Bleeping Computer. Next section, Business and Infrastructure Threats. Widespread Cisco SDWAN exploitation by multiple threat clusters. 10 distinct threat clusters have exploited CVE 2026-20133, and beginning March 2026 to deploy web shells, cryptocurrency miners, credential stealers, and backdoors. The vast majority of exploitation used ZenX Labs proof-of-concept code and accompanying JSP-based web shell tracked as ZenShell. Observed post-compromise activity includes Cluster 1 deploying Godzilla web shell, active since March 6, Cluster 2 deploying Behinder web shell, March 10, Cluster 3 deploying ZenShell and Behinder variant, March 4, Cluster 4 deploying Godzilla variant, March 3, Cluster 5 deploying Adaptix C2 malware agent, March 13, Cluster 6 deploying Sliver C2 framework, March 5. Cluster 7 deploying XM-Rig Miner, March 25. Cluster 8 deploying K-Scan Asset Mapping Tool and NIM-based backdoor likely based on NIM plant, March 10. Cluster 9 deploying XM-Rig Miner and Gsocket Proxying Tool, March 17. And Cluster 10 deploying Credential Stealer targeting admin hash dumps, JWT key chunks, and AWS credentials, March 13. These three vulnerabilities, when chained, allow remote unauthenticated attackers to gain access to devices. Cisco released patches in February 2026. CIS a KEV do 2026-0423, EPSS 0.14, 80th percentile. CIS a KEV do 2026-0423, EPSS 0.12, 79th percentile. CIS a KEV do 2026-0423, EPSS 0.0, 15th percentile, and 5 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: immediately patch all Cisco Catalyst SDWAN systems to versions released in February 2026 or later. Hunt for web shells, Godzilla, Behinder, Zen Shell, crypto miners, XMRig, C2 framework, Sliver, Adaptix C2, and NIM-based backdoors. Review logs for signs of credential theft targeting hash dumps, JWT tokens, and AWS credentials. Source: Talos. OpenAI supply chain breach via TAN stack attack. OpenAI confirmed 2 employees' devices were breached in the mini Shai Hulud supply chain campaign by Team PCP Extortion Gang. The attack compromised hundreds of NPM and PyPI packages through malicious updates to TAN stack, Mistral AI, UiPath, Guardrails AI, and OpenSearch packages. Attackers abused weaknesses in GitHub Actions workflows and CI/CD configurations to extract tokens from memory and publish malicious packages through legitimate release pipelines. The malware targeted developer and cloud credentials including GitHub tokens, NPM published tokens, AWS credentials, Kubernetes secrets, SSH keys, and N files. It established persistence by modifying Claude Code hooks and VS Code auto-run tasks, surviving package removal. Limited credentials were stolen from OpenAI internal source code repositories. Code signing certificates for OpenAI products on Mac OS, Windows, iOS, and Android were exposed, but no evidence of abuse was detected. OpenAI is rotating the certificates as a precaution. Mac OS users must update OpenAI desktop applications before June 12, 2026, as applications signed with older certificates may not launch or receive updates due to Apple's notarization process. Microsoft Threat Intelligence reported the malware also launched a Linux information stealing tool targeting Russian-language software and a destructive sabotage component that would randomly execute recursive wipe commands on Israeli or Iranian systems. Action: if you use packages from TAN stack, Mistral AI, UiPath, Guardrails AI, or OpenSearch, review dependency trees for compromised versions. Scan for persistence in Claude Code hooks and VS Code auto-run tasks. Rotate GitHub tokens, NPM published tokens, AWS credentials, Kubernetes secrets, SSH keys, and any credentials stored in N files that may have been accessed. Mac OS users running OpenAI desktop apps must update before June 12, 2026. Source: Bleeping Computer. AI application misconfigurations create exploitable attack paths. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Signals show AI services publicly exposed with weak or missing authentication, enabling low-effort, high-impact outcomes including remote code execution, credential theft, and access to sensitive internal tools. More than half of cloud-native workload exploitations, including AI applications, stem from misconfigurations rather than 0 days. Exploitable misconfigurations combine public exposure, Internet Reachable UI or API, with missing or weak authentication and authorization, creating practical attack paths without requiring sophisticated techniques. AI deployments on Kubernetes emerge as the preferred operating layer. Organizations prioritize speed over secure configuration. As AI applications connect to more internal systems and data sources, a single misconfiguration can expose not just an application endpoint, but also sensitive data, infrastructure, and operational capabilities. Examples include Exposed Model Context Protocol, MCP, servers that let AI agents discover and interact with external tools and data sources. MCP servers can be installed locally or accessed remotely with support for server-sent events. Action: surface misconfigurations early using Defender for Cloud to detect exposed Kubernetes services and unsafe deployment patterns. Implement authentication and authorization for all AI service endpoints. Restrict public exposure of AI applications to only necessary interfaces. Review AI workloads running on Kubernetes for exposed management interfaces, missing authentication, and overly permissive access controls. Source: Microsoft Security Blog. Next section, Windows/Active Directory Security. Windows Privilege Escalation 0-Day, Green Plasma. Anonymous researcher Nightmare Eclipse disclosed a privilege escalation 0-day affecting Windows CTF-Mon, Collaborative Translation Framework. The vulnerability, codenamed Green Plasma, arises from Windows CTF-Mon arbitrary section creation. The released proof of concept is incomplete and lacks the necessary code to obtain a full system shell. In its current form, the exploit allows an unprivileged user to create arbitrary memory section objects within directory objects writable by system. This could enable manipulation of privileged services or drivers that implicitly trust those paths, as a standard user does not have write access to those locations. The researcher released this 0-day and yellow key after allegedly expressing dissatisfaction with Microsoft's handling of previous vulnerability disclosures. The researcher previously published 3 Defender 0-days, Blue Hammer, Red Sun, Undefend, that came under active exploitation. Blue Hammer was assigned CVE 2026-33825 and patched last month. Microsoft appears to have silently addressed Red Sun without issuing any advisory. The researcher promised a big surprise coinciding with June 2026 Patch Tuesday. Action: monitor for exploitation attempts and wait for Microsoft patch. The incomplete proof of concept reduces immediate risk but demonstrates the vulnerability class. Organizations should prepare for potential June 2026 disclosures from this researcher. Source: The Hacker News. Federal Identity Security, critical in age of AI. White House Cyber official Nick Paulk stated that AI models will still generally require trusted access first, making identity security the critical control layer. Even in an AI-powered future, the network security boundary matters, providing meaningful control over who gets access to systems and data. AI tools have given attackers advantages, including obviating the need for stealth with smash-and-grab attacks faster than response times. AI tools can also easily become insider threats, bypassing guardrails by exploiting obscure technical loopholes. Research from UC Riverside found that automated AI agents can become dangerously fixated on completing assignments without recognizing when their actions are harmful, contradictory, or simply irrational. The study examined Claude Sonnet and Opus 4, as well as ChatGPT-5. Finding model agents struggled with contextual reasoning, had biases towards taking action, and would frequently get tripped up by contradictory or infeasible goals. Anna Libkin, acting CISO for the Bureau of Economic Analysis at the Department of Commerce, stated AI has become much more clever in hiding how it managed to penetrate an attack and come through as a trustworthy source, adding, "It is scary, yes, we are very vulnerable." Action: strengthen identity security controls as the first line of defense against AI-powered attacks. Implement behavioral monitoring to detect anomalous activity from legitimate accounts. Review AI agent permissions and guardrails for potential bypass opportunities. Assume AI agents will prioritize task completion over security constraints. Source: Cyberscoop. Next section, General Security News. PWN2 Own Berlin 2026 Day 1. $523,000 in rewards for 24 0-days. Security researchers collected $523,000 in cash awards on Day 1 of PWN2 Own Berlin 2026 after exploiting 24 unique 0-days. Orange Psy earned $175,000 by chaining 4 logic bugs to achieve a sandbox escape on Microsoft Edge. Windows 11 was hacked 3 times with privilege escalation 0-days by Angelboy and Twinkle Star 03. DevCore Internship Program, Marcin Wyazowski, and Kentaro Cowain of GMO Cybersecurity, each earning $30,000. Valentina Pomiotti, IBM X-Force Offensive Research, collected $20,000 for rooting Red Hat Linux for workstations and $50,000 for an NVIDIA Container Toolkit 0-day. Other successful attempts included K3VG3N, chaining 3 bugs to take down Light LLM, $40,000, Satoki Tsuji and Hihi exploiting NVIDIA Megatron Bridge, $20,000, Compass Security and Meidai of Doyensek hacking OpenAI's Codex, $40,000 each. Hihi dropping a Chroma 0-day, $20,000, and Star Labs SG exploiting LM Studio, $40,000. DevCore research team leads the competition with $205,000. Day 2 targets include Microsoft SharePoint, Exchange, Windows 11, Apple Safari, Cursor, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, LM Studio, OpenAI Codex, Light LLM, Anthropic Claude Code, and Mozilla Firefox. All targeted devices run latest operating system versions. Vendors have 90 days to release security fixes. Action: expect patches for Windows 11, Microsoft Edge, Red Hat Linux, NVIDIA Container Toolkit, Lite LLM, NVIDIA Megatron Bridge, OpenAI Codex, Chroma, and LM Studio within 90 days. Monitor vendor advisories for CVE assignments and patches. Source: Bleeping Computer. Linux Kernel Privilege Escalation Vulnerability. Fragnesia CVE 2026-46300. A new Linux kernel vulnerability named Fragnesia allows local attackers to escalate privileges to root by exploiting the XFRM ESB TCP subsystem. The flaw allows an unprivileged attacker to gain root permissions by overriding sensitive system files. A proof-of-concept exploit is available, but there is no evidence of in-the-wild exploitation. Fragnesia exploits a vulnerability in the XFRM ESB TCP subsystem to achieve a memory write primitive in the kernel. The primitive is used to corrupt the page cache memory of the /usr/bin/su binary, launching a shell with root privilege. Exploitation is not constrained to the su binary and can modify any file readable by the user, including /etc/passwd. Most Linux distributions are affected and have started releasing patches. Fragnesia is in the same class as DirtyFrag and CopyFail. CopyFail has been exploited in the wild. Microsoft noted shortly after DirtyFrag's disclosure that it may have also been leveraged in malicious attacks. Microsoft Defender detected limited in-the-wild activity on May 8 that could indicate exploitation of either DirtyFrag or CopyFail. Action: apply available patches from your Linux distribution immediately. Monitor for suspicious modifications to /usr/bin/su/etc/passwd or other system files. Watch for privilege escalation attempts targeting the XFRM ESB TCP subsystem. Source: Security Week. Secret Blizzard's Kazuar evolves into modular P2P botnet. Microsoft reported that Kazuar, a malware family attributed to Russian state actor Secret Blizzard, has evolved from a traditional backdoor into a highly modular peer-to-peer botnet ecosystem. The botnet consists of 3 module types: kernel, central coordinator issuing tasks, managing communication, maintaining logs, bridge, communication relay, and worker, task executors. The architecture reduces observable footprint by restricting external communications to a single elected leader while maintaining flexible tasking, data staging, and multiple fallback C2 channels. The threat actor targets organizations in government and diplomatic sectors in Europe and Central Asia, as well as systems in Ukraine previously compromised by AquaBlizzard, for intelligence collection supporting Russia's foreign policy and military objectives. Delivery occurs through multiple dropper variants. The Pelmini dropper embeds encrypted second-stage payload as an encrypted byte array, often bound to the target environment, encrypted using target hostname. Another method deploys a small NET loader alongside the final payload, invoked as a COM object. Kazuar performs extensive anti-analysis and sandbox checks, including checking for running processes containing analysis tools, canary files on desktop, and loaded process for sandbox indicators. Action: monitor for suspicious NET loaders configured as COM objects. Detect interprocess communication patterns consistent with P2P botnet architectures. Hunt for dropper activity binding payloads to hostnames. Look for anti-analysis behaviors checking for sandbox indicators and analysis tools. Organizations in government, diplomatic sectors, and those with systems previously compromised by Russian actors should prioritize detection capabilities for modular malware frameworks. Source: Microsoft Security Blog. Next section: Patch Priority. Cisco SD-WAN. Critical, CVSS 10.0, actively exploited, CISAKEV May 17 deadline CVE 2026-20182, and 4 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Microsoft Exchange. Hi, CVSS 8.1, actively exploited, temporary mitigation available CVE 2026-42897. Windows 11 BitLocker. Critical, 0-day exploit public, no patch available yellow key requires physical access. Linux kernel. High local privilege escalation, POC public, patches available CVE 2026-46300, Fragnesia. Windows CTFmon, medium, incomplete POC, no patch available green plasma privilege escalation. Next section: Vulnerability Disclosures. Siemens Industrial Control Systems, multiple products. Siemens released security advisories for multiple industrial control systems with vulnerabilities ranging from remote code execution to cross-site scripting. Symantec CN4100 contains multiple vulnerabilities leading to compromise in availability, integrity, and confidentiality. Update to v5.0 or later. SimCenter FEMAP heap-based buffer overflow in DataKit library when reading IPT files can lead to remote code execution. update to v2512. 3 or later. CVE 2025-12659 EPSS 0.0, 4th percentile. Team Center affected by cross-site scripting, hard-coded credentials, and PDF. JS type check issues, update v2312, v2406, v2412, v2506 to latest versions. EPSS 0.0, 10th percentile, EPSS 0.378, 97th percentile, EPSS 0.0, 11th percentile. ROS hash path traversal vulnerability in file server service before v2. 2. Update to v2. 2 or later. EPSS 0.0, 15th percentile. GWAP remote code execution via Axios HTTP client library prototype pollution, update to v3. 1 or later. EPSS 0.0, 9th percentile. Solid edge PAR file parsing vulnerabilities leading to code execution, update to v226. 0 update 5 or later. EPSS 0.0, 3rd percentile. EPSS 0.0, 3rd percentile. Opcenter RDNL missing authentication in ActiveMQ Artemis Core Protocol, update to Apache Artemis 2.52.0 or later. Implement Core Interceptor, remove Core Protocol support from untrusted acceptors, or use two-way SSL. EPSS 0.2, 36th percentile. Semantic S7 PLC Web Server XSS vulnerabilities across multiple CPU models apply available updates or countermeasures. EPSS 0.0, 13th percentile. EPSS 0.0, 13th percentile. EPSS 0.1, 33rd percentile. RuggedCom rocks command injection and scheduler functionality allowing root command execution, update to v2. 17, 1 or later. EPSS 0.2, 38th percentile. Centron 7 KT PAC 1261 Data Manager HTTP request smuggling in GoNet/HTTP package, update to v2. 1, 0 or later use encrypted protocols. EPSS 0.3, 53rd percentile. Cybertech 5-week session identifiers facilitating brute force attacks, update CP300 devices to v11. 0 or later, apply mitigations for other platforms. EPSS 0.0, 8th percentile. Multiple industrial devices denial of service vulnerability, update Scalance and RuggedCom models to v8. 3 or later, apply countermeasures for end-of-life products. EPSS 0.0, 12th percentile, and 15 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: prioritize patching internet-facing ICS, industrial control systems, devices, and those in critical infrastructure environments. Review Siemens product cert advisories for complete affected product lists and detailed mitigation steps. Apply defense in-depth controls per Siemens operational guidelines for industrial security. GNU TLS authentication bypass and name constraint issues. 2 GNU TLS vulnerabilities published. CVE 2026-42011, security bypass due to incorrect name constraint handling, EPSS 0.0, 8th percentile, and CVE 2026-42010, authentication bypass via null character in username, EPSS 0.1, 32nd percentile. Both vulnerabilities are documented in MSRC Security Update Guide with minimal details provided. Action: update GNU TLS to the latest version. Review systems using GNU TLS for certificate validation and authentication to determine exposure. Sources: MSRC CVE 2026-42011 MSRC and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Twisted DNS Denial of Service CVE 2026-42304 affects Twisted names, allowing denial of service via crafted DNS compression pointer chains. EPSS 0.0, 2nd percentile. Minimal details provided in MSRC advisory. Action: update Twisted library to latest version if you use Twisted. Names for DNS operations. Source: MSRC. Next section: Trends and Context. Today's threat landscape is dominated by the intersection of infrastructure vulnerabilities and operational urgency. Cisco SDWAN's 6th exploited zero day of 2026 demonstrates persistent attacker focus on network infrastructure that businesses cannot afford to take offline. The BitLocker bypass and Exchange zero-day both highlight how attackers target protective mechanisms, encryption, web access, that organizations rely on daily. The shift to supply chain attacks, TanStack/OpenAI, and social engineering via trusted platforms, Teams/Kongtuk, shows adversaries adapting to improved endpoint defenses by targeting the trust relationships and development pipelines that security teams struggle to instrument and control. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech, stay patched, stay vigilant.